Oh, you just caught me making some tea. Hello, everyone. New studio, new bed, new situation. And I can't find most of my belongings, so this is what I could drum up. Hello! Hello, Johnny O Twitch. Hello, Sally. It's good to see both of you. I may have gone a bit hard on the boudoir colors for this evening, but these walls are actually purple. This is an actual lavender colored wall. Let's climb into bed. It's time. Goodness gracious me. Here I am all just tuckered out from moving. I could barely find my makeup, so I just figured I'd just wear this instead. And I am a Leo. It was between this and the fox. What do you think? Should I just read to you like this all night? I'm for it. The only problem, of course, is that I can't drink any of this fine rose Ceylon that was sent to me by Sally whilst wearing this mask. It is a conundrum. It is difficulty. Goodness. Ooh, it's also quite warm in there, which is great because this house is a bit drafty. The reason I have all of these scarves behind me is because this is actually a window and it's single pane. So we're just sorting it out. We're just sorting it out. Let me make an adjustment real fast as well. Whoop. All right, darlings. I know it's a bit dark today, but we're gonna fix it in the future, and we're just gonna have the light over here. And I hope that you can hear me all right. It's still a bit bouncy in the room because it's not as full of soft things as my last room was. But I have this warm tea to keep my temperature up. Katie D, hello! Meow to you as well. Meow. I should slurp like a cat with a dish of cream. Anyways, I don't know. It's just what a difference. It's been 2 weeks since we've seen each other. I know that. You know that. That's how calendars work. That's how linear time works. And it's been a lot. I've been moving out basically every single day of those 2 weeks and also working full time. And it's been nuts. And I don't know to call this the egg anymore. The egg was a specific and very insulated place inside of a larger, louder environment, but this is mine. This is the house that I live in, with just one housemate who is not part of the greater constellation of the Nat 21 Adventures family or the Awesometown family. And so this, I welcome you all, is the BOXCAR, where the glamour hobos live and work. It's still mostly Richmond. I'm just outside of Richmond and basically a suburb. But there's a swamp nearby, and I found a great pizza place for dinner, and hopefully I will find a cemetery soon. So what have you been doing? Oh, that's the other thing. This is still technically Powhatan land, where I am broadcasting from, but also Chickahominy land, because the Chickahominy River runs through the swamp that I just told you about. So, in acknowledgement of those traditional stewards of the land, I say hello again. Tell me how your week has been. What have you been doing? Have you been moving? Have you been thinking about your life choices? Have you been wondering why you have, I think I have 10 champagne flutes, crystal champagne flutes. 10. Why? Why do I have 10 crystal champagne flutes? I work as a glamour hobo. There's no point. Have you been wondering what you've been doing with your whole life? Please tell me. I also have just realized that we are just on the Wi-Fi because I have not gotten a wired cable yet. So if the resolution is a bit poor, I apologize. It will be sorted next week. Tell me in the comments. Tell me what you've been up to. I'll pull my there it is. Traveling and viewing amazing geological features. Like what? KDD, tell us where you've been. Immediately. We need it. I have to say, I'm really loving this gold filigree with these purple walls. It's really working. Sally's been trying to stay warm. I recommend trying to drink some tea. Rock City, oh my God, Rock City. Can we talk about Rock City, Tennessee? Rock City is bananas. It's bananas because it is a labor of love. It was a labor of love, and it continues to be this like labor of love. It's my understanding that the man, I've been there, the man and woman who owned the land in the 1920s, 100 years ago, there you go, were mostly homebodies, but she, the wife, really liked the kind of traditional ceramics of the people who lived down at the bottom of the mountain, because Rock City is at the top of this mountain that they lived on. And they really liked hiking, and she really liked garden gnomes. So he went down into town, and every time he went into town, he would bring her back like a garden gnome or a big rock that was like really beautiful, or like something carved. And he started making her little um walking paths and rock gardens, and then it turned into caverns full of full-scale dioramas of Mother Goose stories and geode chambers and model trains and a zoo. It's bananas. It was an obsession. It was an obsession that was fueled by the love between a man and a woman that may not have been as obsessive, but what they built together was obsessive, which I think is really cool. I highly recommend it. It's such a strange, beautiful place. I went there in November in like 2017, so it was balls cold, but it was so cool. I mean, it was like just a delight from beginning to end. I actually have to say, like, as much as I liked House on the Rock, I think I like Rock City better. Maybe that's my hot take. Maybe that's what the kids are saying is my like controversial opinion, blah, blah. I think I like Rock City better because it is full of like kitsch and wonder that was built by someone with a lot of spare time and seemingly endless resources. But it, the scale just appeals to me more, kind of like I like smaller cities versus larger cities. Like I like a Budapest. I don't like a Paris. Like I like a, you know, a Chicago or I like a Cleveland, not a New York City. Like for walking around in as a city and living. I just like, I don't like the too big stuff. I like Philadelphia. Okay, what else have we got in this? Good deed. Johnny on Twitch says he's been doing good deeds, fixing cars for family and building computers for friends and fighting evil and changing minds one labor at a time. Good, good. I'm here for it. It's the time of year where we take small steps forward to the world that we want to build and live in. Swath new Ghostbusters. Swath? I don't know what swath or swath I don't know what that means. No, we were at the bottom of the fork, but went the other direction. Sally, I don't know what you're trying to say. Please advise. All right, darlings. Do you have any questions for me? This is an ask me anything moment now that we're in the box car together and we're having our tea. Oh, we've been to the Carolina Renaissance Fair. Excellent. You've seen some of our other program leaders, Lady Prue. I do hope to meet her in person someday. I think we'd be fast friends. And I think she just wrapped up her show for this evening. Saw the new Ghostbusters. It's on my list. It's on my list. This past week, 2 weeks ago, I don't even know, what is time? I watched Dune. And I liked it. It was very atmospheric. It's kind of like sticking with me very quietly and ambiently, which is why I brought that for tonight. Or it's all the way over here. Station 11, which I love. Which I think we read a bit of. But this is one of my favorite science fiction books of all time, actually. So we'll get there, but I also, of course, have the Lenormand card so that we can build a story together before I read to you. All right. Any questions before we build our story? This is our ask me anything hot minute. You can ask the lion anything. I'll act like an oracle. How long have I been a storyteller? Well, darlings, I have to say, I have been making up little fantasies and expressing my imagination for a very long time. I would say it started with marathon sessions of Barbies when I was a small little lion cub. I am not ashamed to say that I played with Barbies. In the past, I would have thought that it was some sort of hyper feminine conditioning tool, but not the way I played Barbies. It was very sexual, but also just like a lot of murder, and a lot of heartbreak and drama. I would go to my friend's house for the weekend or for the week. My mom would drop me off, and I would just, for days, we would have these stories with dozens of characters, and we would just play the same storyline like a soap opera, which explains why I like Korean dramas now. Like, I really do love a Korean drama, but I don't like American soap operas. They just don't work for me. I don't know why, but yeah. And then when I would leave at the end of like 2 days or 3 days or 9 days, the story would end. Everybody would be dead usually, or there'd be some sort of happily ever after, and of a sort, and we would be done, and there'd be no continuing. So it was like a limited series. So I would say I've been a storyteller for as long as I could open my mouth and realized that someone was listening. And I don't mean that as a like audience members giving me praise, but I do admit that there are spirits and more than human kin that listen to us. And I've always kind of felt the kind of like background radiation of that. And also, darlings, I'm not afraid to admit that I do enjoy the sound of my own voice. So I like listening to me telling stories. It's kind of like when I sing, I like the audio input of my actual intonation. So I'd say it's been forever, as long as I've been sentient. All right. Good question. Shall we write a story together? All right. Oh, I'm supposed to do some sort of housekeeping as well. Watch the other shows. Tuesday night show is exciting. That's our flagship show. We're taking a break in December. Awesome Town and citizens, myself included as an ambassador, are going to Ireland for the week of Christmas. And if you have any recommendations, please drop them in the chat. Send me a note. And I have a show going to Florida in January. The Marvelous Mechanical Maiden will be in Florida from the 11th, 12th, 13th, something like that. I'll post it up. It'll be all over my social soon. Now that I'm settled a little bit more, I have more time to think about things like my work as an artist. All right, you know the game. I need 3 numbers between 1 and 36. Drop them in the chat. 19. 1. I need 1 more. 35. All right. All right, darlings. 19, 1, and 35. So that's the rider. 19, 1, and 35. 19, 1, and 35. 19, 1, and 35. The anchor. Interesting. 19, 1. Ooh, the tower. 35. All right. This one will be brief because I really do want to read the book. It's at the very back. Of course it is. All right. 19. So tower, anchor, rider. All right. If you're new here, every week I rant for a little bit at the beginning of the show, and then we build a story together in the middle using the Lenormand divination card deck. And then I read some classic sci-fi to close out the hour. And we drink tea and we get comfy. Ahem. In the future, there will be a citadel. It will be glorious. It will be grown from the branches of the trees that have survived the worst wars. It will reach high into the sky, and it will be a bastion of learning. It will also be a bastion of control. What is left in that future, after those worst wars, is a feeling that if only we had seen it coming, we wouldn't have suffered so much or made those terrible choices. The tower allows us to see those problems, issues, challenges, curveballs, betrayals, heartbreaks. Because of how it has grown, because of how it is built, it can see past the curvature of the earth and the curvature of space-time. It can parse out the best course of action, and the people who rule it make the best choices. Capital B, capital C. They believe that their vocation is what holds the world together. Like an anchor, it is important that it keeps the ship of the new world safe. In the harbor, it is necessary, but when you are on the sea, an anchor is dangerous. And there is going to be trouble. Even in this beautiful future, even in the land where you can see through space and time, even then, human nature creates a level of chaos and yearning and doubt. So this rock steady, anchored world will face trouble because it must eventually move forward off of its moorings, away from its safe harbors, into uncharted territory in order for it to survive. But the rulers who make the best choices are not ready to admit that that is the case. Everything is under control. Nobody needs to panic. But there is a rumor that someone is coming from a different tower, from a different place. A rider. When they come, news of the highest, most profound order will be cascaded across the masses. It will shake everything. Will it be good? Can't say. Will it be troublesome? Definitely. Will it be inconveniently timed? Most assuredly. But who doesn't love getting a sincere and thoughtful bit of mail carried with love by a human being and delivered into your hands for you and you alone to digest and savor? That is what that news will be like. A handwritten letter with love from the revolution. That is our story for tonight. And I have to say, as I was making it up, I was having a like, oh, this is sounding very Dune-y. So it's a good thing that we're going to read Dune. What do you think of your story, dear ones? Really, if I could just drink tea while wearing this, I would really work so much better. There we go. Urulin. Inulin? All right, darlings, it's time to make a choice. Dune or Station 11? KDD is 100% here for Dune. All right. Dune! It's time for Dune. We'll start at the beginning. Dune by Frank Herbert. Book 1 in the Dune Chronicles, which I will admit I have never read. Originally published in 1965. Ooh. The spice must flow. Ooh, there are appendices and maps. there a map? Funny story, in 2014, I decided to have a... Oh, there is a map. Check it out. There's a map in the back. In 2014, I decided to have a sci-fi book club, and we were going to read Dune. That was going to be the first one. And I was like, I can find a copy of Dune in a thrift shop, because I was on the road. I can find a copy of Dune in a thrift shop. It's not going to be trouble. It won't be a problem. And I absolutely could not find a copy of Dune. Like, I could find like God Emperor of Dune. I could find all of the other chronicles, but I could not find just base Dune. I think it's because once you have it, you don't give it away because it's perfect. And so this was a gift to me from one of my castmates from Midsummer Night's Dream, which I was doing because they had a spare copy that they were not going to give to a thrift store, but they would have given to me. You can keep throwing out chum into the waters, Johnny O Twitch, but I gotta tell you, I'm not biting. I'm not biting. All right. Book 1, Dune. Which is an excerpt by Princess Irulan, so fucking perfect. A beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. To begin your study of the life of Muad'Dib, then, take care that you first place him in his time. Born in the 57th year of the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, and take the most special care that you locate Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there. Arrakis, the planet known as Dune, is forever his place. From the Manual of Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan. In the week before their departure to Arrakis, when all the final scurrying about had reached a nearly unbearable frenzy, an old crone came to visit the mother of the boy, Paul. It was a warm night at Castle Caladan, and the ancient pile of stone that had served the Atreides family as home for 26 generations bore that cooled sweat feeling it acquired before a change in the weather. The old woman was let in by the side door down the vaulted passage by Paul's room, and she was allowed a moment to peer in at him where he lay in his bed. By the half-light of a suspender lamp, dimmed and hanging near the floor, the awakened boy could see a bulky female shape at his door, standing one step ahead of his mother. The old woman was a witch shadow, hair like matted spiderwebs, hooded round darkness of features, eyes like glittering jewels. "Is he not small for his age, Jessica?" the old woman asked. Her voice wheezed and twanged like an untuned balisette. Paul's mother answered in her soft contralto. "The Atreides are known to start late getting their growth, your reverence." So I've heard, wheezed the old woman. "Yet he's already 15. "Yes, your reverence." "He's awake and listening to us," said the old woman. "Sly little rascal." She chuckled. But royalty has need of slyness, and if he really is the Kwisatz Haderach, well. Within the shadows of his bed, Paul held his eyes open to mere slits. The two bird-bright ovals, the eyes of the old woman, seemed to expand and glow as they stared into his. "Sleep well, you little sly rascal," said the old woman. "Tomorrow you'll need all your faculties to meet my Gom Jabbar." And she was gone, pushing his mother out, closing the door with a solid thump. Paul lay awake wondering, what's a Gom Jabbar? In all the upset during this time of change, the old woman was the strangest thing he'd seen. "Your reverence." And the way she called his mother Jessica, like a common serving wench instead of what she was, a Bene Gesserit lady, a duke's concubine, and mother of the ducal heir. Is a Gom Jabbar something of Arrakis I must know before we go there? He wondered. He mouthed her strange words. Gom Jabbar, Kwisatz Haderach. There had been so many things to learn. Arrakis would be a place so different from Caladan that Paul's mind whirled with the new knowledge. Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Thufir Hawat, his father's master of assassins, had explained it. Their mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, had been on Arrakis 80 years, holding the planet in quasi-fief under a Choem company contract to mine the geriatric spice, melange. Now the Harkonnens were leaving to be replaced by the House Atreides in fief, complete an apparent victory for Duke Leto. Yet Hawat had said that this appearance continued the deadliest peril, for the Duke Leto was popular among the great houses of the Landsraad. A popular man arouses the jealousy of the powerful, Hawat had said. Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Paul fell asleep to the dream of an Iraqian cavern, silent people all around him moving in the dim light of snow globes. Glow globes, definitely not snow globes. It was solemn there, and like a cathedral, as he listened to a faint sound, the drip, drip, drip of water. Even while he remained in the dream, Paul knew he would remember it upon waking. He always remembered the dreams that were predictions. The dream faded. Paul awoke to feel himself in the warmth of his bed, thinking. This world of Castle Caladan, without play or companions his own age, perhaps did not serve sadness in farewell. Dr. Yue, his teacher, had hinted that the Feuerlachs class system was not rigidly guarded on Arrakis. The planet sheltered people who lived at the desert edge without Cade or Bashar to command them. Willa the Sand People, called Fremen, marked down on no census of the imperial regate. Arrakis, Dune, desert planet. Paul sensed his own tensions, decided to practice one of the mind-body lessons his mother had taught him. 3 quick breaths triggered the responses. He fell into the floating awareness, focusing the consciousness, aortal dilation, avoiding the unfocused mechanism of consciousness to be conscious by choice, blood enriched and swift flooding the overload regions. One does not obtain food safety freedom by instinct alone. Animal consciousness does not extend beyond the given moment, nor into the idea that its victims may become extinct. The animal destroys and does not produce. The animal pleasures remain close to the sensation levels and avoid the perceptual. The human requires a background grid through which to see his universe. Focused consciousness by choice. This forms your grid. Bodily integrity follows nerve blood flow according to the deepest awareness of cell needs. All things, cells, beings are impermanent. Strive for flow permanence within. Over and over within Paul's floating awareness, the lesson rolled. When dawn touched Paul's window sill with yellow light, he sensed it through closed eyelids, opened them, hearing then the renewed bustle and hurry of the castle, seeing the familiar patterned beams of his bedroom ceiling. The hall door opened and his mother peered in, hair like shaded bronze, held back with a black ribbon at the crown, her oval face emotionless and green eyes staring solemnly. "You're awake. Did you sleep well?" "Yes." He studied the tallness of her, saw the hint of tension in her shoulders as she chose clothing for him from the closest racks. Another might have missed the tension, but she had trained him in the Bene Gesserit way, in the minutiae of observation. She turned, holding a semi-formal jacket for him. It carried the red Atreides hawk crest above its breast pocket. "Hurry and dress. Reverend Mother is waiting." "I dreamed of her once," Paul said. "Who is she?" "She was my teacher at the Bene Gesserit school. Now she's the Emperor's truth-sayer, and Paul..." She hesitated. "You must tell her about your dream." "I will. Is she the reason we got Arrakis?" "We did not get Arrakis." Jessica flicked dust from a pair of trousers, hung them with the jacket on the dressing stand beside his bed. "Don't keep Reverend Mother waiting." Paul sat up, hugged his knees. "What's a Gom-Jabbar?" Again, the training she had given him exposed her almost invisible hesitation, a nervous betrayal he felt as fear. Jessica crossed to the window, flung wide the draperies, stared across the river orchards towards Mount Siubi. "You'll learn about the Gom-Jabbar soon enough." He heard the fear in her voice and wondered at it. Jessica spoke without turning. "Reverend Mother is waiting in my morning room. Please, hurry." The Reverend Mother, Gaius Helen Moheim, sat in a tapestried chair watching mother and son approach. Windows on each side of her overlooked the curving southern bend of the river and the green farmlands of the Atreides family holding, but the Reverend Mother ignored the view. She was feeling her age this morning, more than a little petulant. She blamed it on space travel and the association with that abominable spacing guild and its secretive ways. But here was a mission that required personal attention from the Bene Gesserit with the sight. Even the Padishah Emperor's truthsayer couldn't evade that responsibility when the duty call came. "Damn that Jessica," the Reverend Mother thought. "If only she'd born as a girl as she was ordered to do." Jessica stopped 3 paces from the chair, dropped a small curtsy, a gentle flick of left hand along the line of her skirt. Paul gave his short bow. His dancing master had taught, the one used when in doubt of another's station. The nuances of Paul's greeting were not lost on the Reverend Mother. She said, "He's a cautious one, Jessica." Jessica's hand went to Paul's shoulder, tightened there, For a heartbeat, fear pulsed through her palm. Then she had herself under control. Thus has he been taught, your reverence. What does she fear? Paul wondered. The old woman studied Paul in one gestalten flicker. Face oval like Jessica's, but strong bones. Hair. The Duke's black, but with brow line of the maternal grandfather who cannot be named. And that thin, disdainful nose, shape of directly staring green eyes, like the old Duke, the paternal grandfather who is dead. Now there was a man who appreciated the power of bravura, even in death, the Reverend Mother thought. Teaching is one thing, she said. The basic ingredient is another. We shall see. The old eyes darted a hard glance at Jessica. Leave us. I enjoin you to practice the meditation of peace. Jessica took her hand from Paul's shoulder. Your Reverence, Jessica, you know it must be done. Paul looked at his mother, puzzled. Jessica straightened. Yes, of course. Paul looked back to the Reverend Mother. Politeness and his mother's obvious awe of this old woman argued caution. Yet he felt an angry apprehension at the fear he sensed radiating from his mother. Paul, Jessica took a deep breath. This test you're about to receive, it's important to me. Test? He looked up at her. Remember that you're the Duke's son? Jessica said. She whirled and strode from the room in a dry swishing of skirt. The door closed solidly behind her. Paul faced the old woman, holding anger in check. Does one dismiss the Lady Jessica as though she were a serving wench? A smile flicked the corners of the wrinkled old mouth. The Lady Jessica was my serving wench, lad, for 14 years at school, she nodded. And a good one, too. Now you come here. The command whipped at him. Paul found himself obeying before he could think about it. Using the voice on me, he thought. He stopped at her gesture, standing beside her knees. See this? She asked. From the folds of her gown, she lifted a green metal cube about 15 centimeters on a side. She turned it, and Paul saw that one side was open, black, and oddly frightening. No light penetrated that open blackness. Put your right hand in the box. Fear shot through Paul. He started to back away, but the old woman said, Is this how you obey your mother? He looked up into bird-bright eyes. Slowly, feeling the compulsions and unable to inhibit them, Paul put his hand into the box. He felt first a sense of cold as the blackness closed around his hand, then slick metal against his fingers and a prickling as though his hand were asleep. A predatory look filled the old woman's features. She lifted her right hand away from the box and poised the hand close to the side of Paul's neck. He saw a glint of metal there and started to turn toward it. Stop! She snapped. Using the voice again. I should do this. Stop! Whenever I'm supposed to use the voice. I hold at your neck the gomja bar. The gomja bar and the high-handed enemy. It's a needle with a drop of poison on its tip. Aha! Don't pull away or you'll feel that poison. Paul tried to swallow in a dry throat. He could not take his attention from the seamed old face, the glistening eyes, the pale gums around silvery metal teeth that flashed as she spoke. The Duke's son must know about poisons. It's the way of our times, eh? Musky, to be poisoned in your drink. Almas, to be poisoned in your food. The quick ones and the slow ones, and the ones in between. Here's a new one for you. The Gom Jabbar. It kills only animals. Pride overcame Paul's fear. You dare suggest the Duke's son is an animal? He demanded. Let us say I suggest you may be human. Steady. I warn you not to try jerking away. I am old, but my hand can drive this needle into your neck before you escape me. Who are you? He whispered. How did you trick my mother into leaving me alone with you? Are you one of the Harkonnens? Harkonnens? Bless us, no. Now, be silent. A dry finger touched his neck, and he stilled the involuntary urge to leap away. Good. You passed the first test. Now there's the rest of it. If you withdraw your hand from the box, you die. This is the only rule. Keep your hand in the box and live. Withdraw it and die. Paul took a deep breath to still his trembling. If I call out there, there'll be servants on you in seconds and you'll die. Servants will not pass your mother, who stands guard at that door. Depend on it. Your mother survived this test. Now it's your turn. Be honored. We seldom administer this to men children. Curiosity reduced Paul's fear to a manageable level. He heard truth in the old woman's voice, no denying it. If his mother stood guard out there, if this were truly a test, and whatever it was, he knew himself caught in it, trapped by that hand at his neck, the Gom Jabbar. He recalled the response from the litany against fear as his mother had taught him out of the Bene Gesserit rite. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. He felt calmness return. Get on with it, old woman. Old woman, she snapped. You've courage, and that can't be denied. Well, we shall see, Sirrah. She bent close, lowered her voice almost to a whisper. You will feel pain in this hand within the box. Pain. But withdraw the hand, and I'll touch your neck with my Gom Jabbar. The death so swift, it's like the fall of the headsman's axe. Withdraw your hand, and the Gom Jabbar takes you. Understand? What's in the box? Pain. He felt increased tingling in his hand, pressed his lips tightly together. How could this be a test? He wondered. The tingling became an itch. The old woman said, You've heard of animals chewing off a leg to escape a trap? There's an animal kind of trick. A human would remain in the trap, endure the pain, feigning death that he might kill the trapper and remove a threat to his kind. The itch became a faint burning. Why are you doing this? He demanded. To determine if you're human. Be silent. Paul clenched his left hand into a fist as the burning sensation increased in the other hand. It mounted slowly, heat upon heat upon heat upon heat. He felt the fingernails of his free hand biting his palm. He tried to flex his fingers with the burning hand, but couldn't move them. "It burns," he whispered. "Silence!" Pain throbbed up his arm. Sweat stood out on his forehead. Every fiber cried out to withdraw the hand from the burning pit, but the gom jabbar. Without turning his head, he tried to move his eyes to see that terrible needle poised beside his neck. He sensed that he was breathing in gasps, tried to slow his breaths, and couldn't. Pain! His world emptied of everything except that hand immersed in agony, the ancient face inches away, staring at him. His lips were so dry he had difficulty separating them. The burning! The burning! He thought he could feel skin curling black on that agonized hand, the flesh crisping and dropping away until only charred bones remained. It stopped, as though a switch had been turned off. The pain stopped. Paul felt his right arm trembling, felt sweat bathing his body. "Enough," the old woman muttered. "Cruel what had no woman child ever withstood that much. I must have wanted you to fail." She leaned back, withdrawing the gom jabbar from the side of his neck. "Take your hand from the box, young human, and look at it." He fought down an aching shiver, staring at the lightless void where his hand seemed to remain of its own volition. Memory of pain inhibited every movement. Reason told him he would be withdrawing a blackened stump from that box. "Do it!" she snapped. He jerked his hand from the box, stared at it astonished. Not a mark. No sign of agony on the flesh. He held up the hand, turned it, and flexed its fingers. "Pain by nerve induction. Can't go around maiming potential humans. There are those who'd give a pretty for the secret of this box, though." She slipped it into the folds of her gown. "But the pain." "Pain," she sniffed. "A human can override any nerve in the body." Paul felt his left hand aching, uncurled the clenched fingers, looked at 4 bloody marks where fingernails had bitten into his palm. He dropped the hand to his side, looking at the old woman. "You did that to my mother once?" The tangential slash of her question. Sorry. "You did that to my mother once?" "Ever sift sand through a screen?" The tangential slash of her question shocked his mind into higher awareness. Sand through a screen. He nodded. "We Bene Gesserit sift people to find the humans." He lifted his right hand, willing the memory of the pain. "And that's all there is to it? Pain? I observed you in pain, lad. Pain's merely the axis of the test. Your mothers told you about our ways of observing. I see the signs of her teaching in you. Our test is crisis and observation." He heard the confirmation in her voice that said, "It's truth." She stared at him. He senses truth. Could he be the one? Could he truly be the one? She extinguished the excitement, though, reminding herself, hope, clouds, observation. "You know when people believe what they say." "I know it." The harmonics of ability, confirmed by repeated test, were in his voice. She heard him. "Perhaps you are the Kwisatz Haderach. Sit down, little brother, here at my feet." "I prefer to stand." "Your mother sat at my feet once." "I'm not my mother." "You hate us a little, eh?" She looked toward the door, called out, "Jessica!" The door flew open and Jessica stood there staring hard-eyed into the room. Hardness melted from her as she saw Paul. She managed a faint smile. "Jessica, have you ever stopped hating me?" the old woman asked. "I both love and hate you. The hate, that's from pains I must never forgive. The love, that's—" "Just the basic fact," the old woman said, but her voice was gentle. "You may come in now, but remain silent. Close that door, and mind that no one interrupts us." Jessica stepped into the room, closed the door, and stood with her back to it. "My son lives," she thought. "My son lives and is human. I knew he was, but he lives. Now I can go on living." The door felt hard and real against her back. Everything in the room was immediate and pressing against her senses. My son lives. Paul looked at his mother. She told the truth. He wanted to get away alone and think this experience through, but knew he could not leave until he had been dismissed. The old woman had gained a power over him. They spoke truth. His mother had undergone this test. There must be terrible purpose in it. The pain and fear had been terrible. He understood terrible purposes, that they drove against all odds. They were their own necessity. Paul felt that he had been infected with terrible purpose. He did not know yet what the terrible purpose was. "Someday, lad," the old woman said, "you too may have to stand outside a door like that. It takes a measure of doing." Paul looked down at the hand that had known pain, then up to the Reverend Mother. The sound of her voice had contained difference then from any other voice in his experience. The words were outlined in brilliance. There was an edge in them. He felt that any question he might ask her would bring an answer that could lift him out of his own flesh world into something greater. "Why do you test for humans?" he asked. "To set you free." "Free?" "Once men turned their thinking over to machines in hope that this would set them free. But that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them." "Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a man's mind," Paul quoted. Right out of the Butlerian Jihad and the Orange Catholic Bible. But what the OC Bible should have said is, "Thou shalt not make a machine to counterfeit a human mind." Have you studied the Mentat in your service? "I've studied with Thufir Hawat." "The Great Revolt took away a crutch," she said. "It forced human minds to develop. Schools were started to train human talents." Bene Gesserit schools? She nodded. "We have two chief survivors of those ancient schools, the Bene Gesserit and the Spacing Guild. The Guild, so we think, emphasizes almost pure mathematics. Bene Gesserit performs another function. Politics." "Kul Wahad," the old woman said. She sent a hard glance at Jessica. "I've not told him, your reverence." The Reverend Mother turned her attentions to Paul. "You did that with remarkably few clues." Politics indeed. The original Bene Gesserit school was directed by those who saw the need of a thread of continuity in human affairs. They saw there could be no such continuity without separating human stock from animal stock for breeding purposes. The old woman's words abruptly lost their special sharpness for Paul. He felt an offense against what his mother's called his instinct for rightness. It wasn't that Reverend Mother lied to him. She obviously believed what she said. It was something deeper, something tied to his terrible purpose. He said, "But my mother tells me many Bene Gesserit of the schools don't know their ancestry. The genetic lines are always in our records. Your mother knows that either she's of Bene Gesserit descent or her stock was acceptable in itself. Then why couldn't she know who her parents are? Some do, many don't. We might, for example, have wanted to breed her to a close relative to set up a dominant in some genetic trait. We have many reasons." Again, Paul felt the offense against rightness. He said, "You take a lot on yourselves." The Reverend Mother stared at him, wondering. Did I hear criticism in his voice? "We carry a heavy burden." Paul felt himself coming more and more out of the shock of the test. He leveled a measuring stare at her and said, "You say maybe I'm the Kwisatz Haderach? What's that, a human Gom Jabbar?" "Paul," Jessica said, "you mustn't take that tone with, 'I'll handle this, Jessica,'" the old woman said. "Now, lad, do you know about the truth-sayer drug?" "You take it to improve your ability to detect falsehood. My mother's told me." "Have you ever seen truth trance?" He shook his head. "No." "The drug's dangerous, but it gives insight. When a truth-sayer is gifted by the drug, she can look many places in her memory, in her body's memory. We look down so many avenues of the past, but only feminine avenues." Her voice took on a note of sadness. "Yet there's a place where no truth-seer can stay. We are repelled by it, terrorized. It is said a man will come one day and find in the gift of the drug his inward eye. You will look where we cannot, into both feminine and masculine pasts." "Your Kwisatz Haderach?" "Yes, the one who can be many places at once, the Kwisatz Haderach. Many men have tried the drug, so many, but none has succeeded." "They tried and failed, all of them?" "Oh no," she shook her head. "They tried and died." That is it for this installment. This version of that story, this version, the origin of that meeting between them in this Frank Herbert's version really sets it up as kind of like much more casual. Like, it's a big deal, but like she's meeting in her morning room. She's spending the night and she's going to meet him in the morning, and it seems very like conversational, versus the most recent movie version of it is like they're in this enormous library and or like observatory room, and there's giant doors, and like she breezes in the middle of the night and they wake him up right at that instant in order to test him, and as soon as she's done they fucking leave. Like, it's a different vibe. I think it serves the story to visually set the Bene Gesserit as space witches in the visual interpretation of the most recent film, because that's what they are. They are space witch. They're space ninja witches. Ninja space witches? Witch ninjas from space. Witch ninjas from space. Bene Gesserit. Yeah, I think the like tone of the like secretiveness, and that they're like this coven of women, and that they like come in and make you do the thing and terrify the fuck out of you, and then they just leave in the middle of the night as soon as their business is done because money is no problem for them. Like, that really sets the tone for their power. But like this, the origin of it makes it sound like It's much more of a just like a nice little conversation in the garden on the veranda. Okay. Yes, Johnny on Twitch. The Amazon box is filled with pain. Yeah, they do call her a witch later on Arrakis. Um, Fucking space witches. When the first previews came out for the new movie, I was very like, this is serious. All of these visuals are lacking in space witches. It was just a lot of men like brooding and looking at each other and like big Werner Herzog style music. And I was like, there needs to be more space witches. Uh, so I'm glad when I watched the movie, like considering that this is a deeply phallic book, they built in a lot more space for women in it, but I really appreciated it. Okay, so here we are. It's 11 o'clock. We wrote a story together. You saw me in my evening mask. I've introduced you to the BOXCAR, which is in progress. And I'm just so glad that we're here again together. I enjoy you so much. As usual, I encourage you, if you've been nourished in the service, as Ruby Rod says, to drop me a tip, which helps pay the rent at these places. And I will see you next week on Monday evening. I hope that you enjoy your week. And while the holiday is pretty bullshit, the coming together to eat delicious food is not. So please enjoy the time that you will have off of your jobs potentially and gathering with the people that you love, eating pie and mashed potatoes, and I will see you all next week. Good night.